Hey guys, tonight's story is going to be a little different, a little heavier, a lot darker, and probably not what you'd pick for a cozy night in. But sometimes the most important stories are the ones that make you the most uncomfortable. So before we slip under the covers, before you queue up another relaxing playlist or set your sleep timer, just take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely like what I do. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. It's always interesting hearing where people are tuning in from around the world. Now, dim the lights, turn on that old fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into this journey together. Tonight, we're going somewhere most people would rather not go. We're going to step into the shoes, if you can call them that, of someone living through one of history's bleakest nightmares, the Holocaust. No heroes here, no sweeping music, no tidy endings. Just the day-to-day reality of life in the camps, where surviving one more sunrise was a feat in itself. Congratulations, you've just woken up. Not in your bed, not in your old familiar world, but in the rattling, pitch-dark belly of a cattle car somewhere in Eastern Europe. The year? Let's call it 1943. The good news? Technically, you're still alive. The bad news? You've been captured by the Gestapo and so are 100 other people, and you're packed together so tightly you can't even sit down. Your back aches, your feet are numb, and every breath is a struggle. You try not to inhale too deeply because the air is thick with sweat, fear, and something far worse. Someone nearby is crying, a low, hopeless sound. Babies wail and are quickly hushed by exhausted mothers. Somewhere in the darkness, someone whispers a prayer. It doesn't help. The train jolts violently, slamming your head into someone else's shoulder. You're not sure if it's day or night. Time has no meaning here, just the endless rattle of the tracks, the stink of humanity, and the terror of not knowing what comes next. People around you mutter in languages you don't understand. Yiddish, Polish, German, Hungarian, Russian. A strange, desperate choir. Somewhere up ahead, you hear boots on metal, the bark of dogs, and the sharp shout of orders. The train slows, then shudders to a stop. The doors slide open, and for a moment the light is blinding. Men in uniforms stand outside, guns in hand, eyes as hard as the steel rails beneath your feet. Dogs strain at their leashes, barking and snarling. "Raus!" someone shouts. "Out!" You're shoved, pushed, stumbling down from the car, boots crunching on gravel. The air outside is cold and thin, but it smells no better. Smoke, rot, and something chemical. You barely have time to blink before people in striped uniforms, prisoners, but not like you, begin yelling, shoving you into lines. The guards bark, orders you barely understand. Left, right. Here's the first lesson. Confusion is your new normal. Nobody explains anything. Nobody cares if you're with your family or alone. In fact, if you try to hold on to someone, you're just as likely to be hit or pulled away. There's a line for men, a line for women and children. You see people clutching each other, refusing to let go, until a guard wrenches them apart. There's crying, shouting, pleading. Some people don't cry at all. They're just silent, eyes already empty. Within minutes, you've lost everything you thought you couldn't live without. Your suitcase, your coat, your shoes. Maybe you tried to sneak a photograph or a trinket, but it's ripped from your hand and tossed on a pile. Someone's shouting your name, but you can't answer. You're shoved into another line, then another. Somewhere in the chaos, you see a guard pointing people in different directions. You don't know what the directions mean, but you know it matters. A look, a limp, an extra grey hair, and you're sent one way, not the other. Most people are still trying to believe this is temporary, a misunderstanding, a mistake. But it's not a mistake. It's just the beginning. Welcome to your new home, And yes, that's a joke, one that nobody laughs at. The first thing you notice is the fences. Not white picket, not anything you'd want around your house. These are 3-4 layers deep, topped with razor wire and pulsing with electricity. Beyond them, rows of wooden barracks, squat and ugly, their roofs sagging under the weight of too many winters. Watchtowers loom above, with silhouettes inside, rifles glinting in the sun. There's no grass, no trees, just mud and gravel, all churned together by thousands of shuffling feet. The second thing you notice is the smell. Forget whatever you think of when you hear campfire. This is smoke that gets in your hair, under your skin, in your mouth. It's mixed with the stink of sweat, sewage, rotting garbage, and something sharp and metallic you can't identify. You don't want to ask what it is. You already know. You can taste it every time you swallow. They herd you into a courtyard, screaming at you to stand in line, not to talk, not to move. Guards walk back and forth, rifles slung casually across their backs. They're not in a hurry. They have all day. Someone with a clipboard shouts at you to strip. You're not the first and you won't be the last. To find that shame is the first thing the camp takes. Your clothes are gone. No argument, no exceptions. A stranger shaves your head with dull clippers. You stare at the pile of hair on the floor, half expecting to wake up from the nightmare, but you don't. A number is tattooed on your arm. It stings, but you barely feel it. The pain is nothing compared to what you've already lost. That number is you now, no more, no less. Everything else is irrelevant. Your name, your history, your family, gone in the space of an afternoon. Next comes your uniform. If you're lucky, it fits. If you're not, it doesn't, and you're cold. Or worse, you look like you belong to a different group and get beaten for it. The fabric is thin, scratchy, filthy. Shoes, if you get any, are mismatched and broken. Your old life is gone. Welcome to the barracks. Your bunk is a slab of rough wood or a mound of mouldy straw. If you're lucky, there's enough room to lie flat. Usually there isn't. You share your sleeping space with lice, fleas, and at least 6 other people, strangers, all of you reduced to the same status. Privacy, forget it. Everyone sleeps, wakes, eats, cries, and dies in the same communal space. Sometimes you wake up to find the person next to you hasn't woken up at all. Death is quiet, ordinary, almost invisible. The living just move over. There are toilets, technically, but not the kind you'd want to use. They're filthy, overflowing trenches or wooden buckets that stink so badly you gag every time you get near. There's no toilet paper, just scraps of rag, leaves, or, usually, nothing at all. If you get sick, tough luck. If you're a woman, your monthly cycle is just one more humiliation. There's no privacy, no dignity, no relief. The guards don't care. Why should they? You're not a person anymore. You're a number in a system designed to break you. And this is just your first day. If you make it through the night, and not everyone does, you're woken before dawn by shouts and the stomp of boots on wood. Roll call. Everyone out. Everyone standing in the freezing cold or the stifling heat, depending on the season. You wait, sometimes for hours, while the guards count, recount, and lose interest. If you collapse, you get kicked. If you talk, you get beaten. If you're lucky, you're invisible. If not, you're a target. Breakfast is a joke, a tin mug of brown liquid that tastes like boiled socks, and a hunk of bread so stale you could use it as a weapon. People fight over crumbs. Food is currency here. Every bite counts. Some people hoard, others trade. A single potato peel is a treasure. The hunger is constant, gnawing, more reliable than the sun or the guards' tempers. Starvation isn't just a possibility, it's a promise. Then comes work. And by work, I mean whatever pointless, back-breaking labour the guards dream up for the day. Maybe you haul rocks from one pile to another, only to move them back again. Maybe you shovel ash from the crematorium. Maybe you sort rags, dig ditches, or drag bodies. There's no end, no reward, no reason. If you're too slow, you're hit. If you're too weak, you're selected for special treatment. Everyone knows what that means, even if nobody says it aloud. If you get sick, there's nowhere to go. The camp hospital is just another place to die. Infections fester, wounds don't heal, lice crawl under your skin, leaving you raw and itching. Typhus, dysentery, tuberculosis. Take your pick. People cough up blood, waste away to nothing. Sometimes the guards do selections in the hospital, sending the weakest away for good. You learn not to complain, not to limp, not to show pain. Any weakness is an invitation to disappear. Hygiene. That's another cruel joke. Showers happen, but you never know if it's water or gas. You strip naked, shiver in line, and pray. If you survive, you're still filthy. Cold water, no soap, maybe a towel if you're very lucky. Teeth rot, gums bleed, hair falls out. The smell of unwashed bodies is overwhelming, but you get used to it. You get used to everything, eventually. The guards are everywhere. Sometimes they're bored, sometimes angry, sometimes just looking for someone to hurt. The rules change daily, sometimes hourly. Maybe today you're allowed to talk. Maybe tomorrow you're not. Maybe you're supposed to walk on the left side of the path, maybe the right. Nobody tells you until it's too late. A mistake is a beating. 2 mistakes, and you're gone. But it's not just the guards. There are also the capos, prisoners who get a little extra food and a little more power in exchange for keeping everyone else in line. Some capos are worse than the guards, desperate to survive by any means. Others look the other way, just trying to last another day. You can't trust anyone, but sometimes you have to. It's the only way to stay alive. Punishments are random. A word, a look, a rumour. Anything can get you singled out. Beatings happen in public, a warning to everyone else. Executions too. People disappear in the night, their bunks empty in the morning. You learn not to ask questions. You learn to keep your head down, your mouth shut, your heart locked away. Selections are the worst. Every week, sometimes every day, the guards line everyone up and choose who stays and who goes. The old, the sick, the weak, they're marked for transport. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's just luck. You stand as straight as you can, pinch your cheeks for colour, hide your limp, hope you look strong. Hope is dangerous, but it's all you have. You find ways to survive. You make friends, even though you know they could disappear any time. You share stories, memories, bits of food. You laugh when you can. Dark, gallows humour, jokes about the guards, the food, the absurdity of it all. Sometimes, humour is the only thing that keeps you from losing your mind. People sing, whisper prayers, invent games to pass the time. The smallest comforts become lifelines. A crust of bread, a warm word, a hand on your shoulder. But not everyone makes it. Some people give up. Muselmänner, they're called. The walking dead. They stop eating, stop talking, stop moving. They sit in the mud until they're carried away. It's not cowardice. It's just the end of hope. You lose your identity, bit by bit. Your name is gone, replaced by a number. Your hair is shaved. Your clothes are the same as everyone else's. You're forbidden to speak your language, to practice your religion, to remember who you were. Some people try anyway, humming a song under their breath, tracing a Star of David in the dirt, whispering a prayer before sleep. The guards call it defiance. You call it survival. Death is random, arbitrary. Maybe you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe a guard is in a bad mood. Maybe you cough once too often, stumble during roll call, or break a tool at work. Maybe you get sick. Maybe someone tells a lie about you. There's no reason, no justice. All you can do is keep moving, keep hoping, keep breathing. And even that is no guarantee. Sometimes there are small mercies, a piece of bread from a stranger, a sip of water when you're parched. Someone shares a scrap of news from the outside, a rumour of liberation, a whisper that the war might be ending. Secret networks form. People trade medicine, hide prayers, smuggle hope. In the darkest corners, people light tiny candles, real or imagined. Memory is resistance. Humanity survives in spite of everything. The world outside feels impossibly far away. News comes in fragments. A Red Cross visit, staged, lies, a performance for outsiders, a rumour of allied armies, whispers that the end is coming. But mostly, the world moves on while the camp stands still. You wait, and wait, and wait. Sometimes you dream about home. Sometimes you can't remember what home looked like at all. Days blur together. You lose track of time. Weeks feel like months. The only calendar is the rhythm of your stomach. Empty in the morning, empty at night. A hunger that never takes a day off. There's no sense of progress, no weekends, no holidays, just the same routines. Roll call, work, a few mouthfuls of food, and then a restless sleep if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, you just lie awake listening to the night sounds. Someone coughing up blood, rats in the walls, guards shouting, boots on gravel, and always that low, aching groan from somewhere deep in the barracks. Someone who knows they won't make it to morning. Seasons change, but nothing ever really changes. In winter, the cold is a living thing. It creeps into your bones and gnaws at your fingers and toes. Frost crawls up the inside walls of the barracks, and the only warmth is from bodies pressed together. No privacy, just desperation. If you have socks, they're thin as paper. If you don't, your feet turn blue and numb. The water in the bucket by the door freezes solid. People die in their sleep, and the morning roll call goes on anyway. There are days when you pray for a fever, just for the warmth. Spring isn't much better. The ground thaws and turns to mud. Shoes rot away. Lice and fleas multiply. The air smells like rot and something sweetly sick, a scent you come to associate with death. Rain drips through the barracks roof and soaks the straw. People cough more, and the sick get sicker. The lucky ones are those who learn to sleep through anything. The shouting, the shoving, the drip, drip, drip. Summer is a different sort of torment. The sun beats down on the gravel parade ground, turning it into a skillet. You sweat until your uniform sticks to your skin, but the stink never really leaves. Mosquitoes breed in the stagnant puddles behind the latrines. Sometimes a work crew passes a tree and you catch the smell of green leaves, and for a split second you remember life before the barbed wire. It almost hurts more than the hunger. You blink and the memory fades. Autumn is just another kind of hunger, colder, quieter, more grey than gold. The food rations shrink, the days grow shorter, and the nights grow longer. Everyone looks smaller, faces sharper, eyes bigger in their sockets. The world outside the fence glows orange and gold for a few brief days, and then it's grey again. Sometimes the guards make you rake leaves or dig ditches, pointless tasks that make your hands bleed. You do it because you have no choice, because tomorrow you'll do it all over again. Friendships are dangerous, but loneliness is worse. You learn quickly that trust is a gamble. Some people will sell you out for a piece of bread, a favour, a single night in the infirmary. Others become your lifeline. You memorise their names, their stories, the way they smile when the guards aren't looking. You share the smallest victories, a warm spot near the stove, a crust of bread, a whispered joke about the guards. Laughter isn't forbidden, but it's rare, and it's always tinged with something desperate. You trade whatever you have, a button, a rusty spoon, a scrap of blanket. Cigarettes are gold, One cigarette can buy you a meal, a pair of socks, a promise of protection. There's a whole black market in the camp, invisible to the guards but obvious if you know what to look for. The bravest, or maybe just the most desperate, smuggle letters out, hoping for news from home. Most of the time, there's no reply. Sometimes there's bad news. Sometimes just silence. You become an expert in reading faces, who's fading, who's fighting, who's given up. You see it in the eyes, a kind of hollow brightness, a person who's already half gone. The Muselmänner, the walking dead, haunt the camp. They're everywhere, and you live with the knowledge that you could join them at any moment. All it takes is a bad cough, a wrong word, a single missed step in the bread line. The guards invent new punishments when they're bored. Sometimes they make you run laps around the camp until your lungs burn and your legs buckle. Sometimes they pick someone at random and beat them for no reason. You learn to keep your head down, your voice low, your footsteps soft. Survival means becoming invisible, except when it doesn't. Sometimes survival means drawing attention, taking a risk, grabbing at a chance for extra food or a better work detail. There are no rules, except that the rules can change at any time. Every so often, a new transport arrives. More prisoners, more confusion, more heartbreak. You see the same cycle, again and again. Arrival, shock, denial, despair. The new ones always ask questions. How long will we be here? When do we go home? Where are our families? You don't have answers. You've stopped asking. Some work details are better than others. If you're sent to the kitchen, you might get an extra potato peel, or a chance to lick the soup pot clean. If you work in the laundry, you handle clothes that still smell faintly of soap, a reminder that somewhere, not so far away, normal life goes on. If you're unlucky, you're sent to the crematorium or the Canada detail, sorting through the possessions of those who didn't make it. You find wedding rings, children's shoes, family photos. You learn not to look too closely. You learn to numb yourself, to move your hands, but not your heart. The worst job is the Sonderkommando, prisoners forced to work in the gas chambers and crematoria. Most of them don't last long. You hear rumours, stories passed in whispers, about what they see, what they do, how they survive. Some of them go mad. Some take their own lives. Some just keep moving, one foot in front of the other, until they can't anymore. You live for small comforts. A ray of sunlight through the barracks window. A scrap of bread shared under the bunk. The sound of a song, hummed so softly the guards can't hear. A prayer, mumbled in a language you barely remember. You memorize the faces of your friends, their voices, their stories, because you know any day could be their last. Religion is forbidden, but it lives underground. You see someone move their lips in silent prayer, fingers twitching in an old ritual. Someone carves a tiny Star of David on the underside of a bunk. Holidays come and go, marked only by a crumb of bread saved for the occasion, a story told in the dark, a song hummed so quietly it's almost a memory. You learn that faith can be both a comfort and a curse, a reason to keep going, or a reminder of all you've lost. The hunger gets inside your head. You dream about food, real food, not the thin, watery soup or the crusts that pass for meals here. You remember the taste of apples, of warm bread, of soup thick with meat and vegetables. Sometimes the dreams are so real you wake up with tears on your face, your stomach growling like an animal. Hunger turns people into strangers. You see it in the way they look at your hands, your pockets, the way they linger near the kitchen, the way a single scrap of bread can spark a fight. You learn not to trust hope, not really. Every now and then, someone whispers a rumour. Liberation is coming, the war is ending, the Allies are near. You want to believe, but you've seen too much, lost too much. You tuck the rumour away like a scrap of bread, something to chew on when the nights get too long. but you don't let yourself believe, not all the way. Hope can be as dangerous as despair. There's no privacy, not ever. You sleep in a row of bodies, feet to faces, elbows in ribs, snoring, coughing, crying. The latrines are communal, the showers are communal, even death is communal. If someone dies in the night, you move them out of the way and fill the empty space. Sometimes the guards count corpses during roll call, as if the dead are still accountable. You stop flinching at the sight of a body. You stop mourning. Grief becomes a luxury you can't afford. The days repeat themselves. Roll call, work, food, roll call, sleep. Sometimes the guards bring news of the outside world. A battle lost, a city bombed, a leader killed. Most of the time, it's lies, or half-truths, or just noise. The only thing that changes is the list of names read out in the morning, the faces missing at night. You watch the seasons change through the barbed wire. Snow falls, melts, mud turns to dust, dust to mud again. The outside world feels impossibly distant, unreachable, almost imaginary. You wonder if anyone out there is thinking of you, if anyone even knows you're alive. Letters are rare, news is rarer. You start to forget the sound of your own language, the shape of your hometown, the faces of your family. You learn to steal moments of humanity wherever you can find them. Someone shares a joke, and for a second you forget where you are. Someone wraps an arm around your shoulders, and you remember what warmth feels like. You hide a photograph in your shoe, a prayer on a scrap of paper, a song in your memory. You learn that survival isn't just about food and shelter. It's about holding on to whatever makes you human, whatever keeps you from turning into a number, a statistic, a shadow on the wall. Every so often the guards hold a selection. Everyone lines up, stripped to the waist, shivering or sweating depending on the season. A doctor or an officer walks the line pointing, left, right. If you're strong, you stay. If you're weak, you go. No explanations, no appeals, just the flick of a hand, the tilt of a chin, and your life changes forever. You learn to stand tall, to pinch colour into your cheeks, to hide your limp, to bite your tongue and hope for the best. You watch people disappear. Sometimes they come back, most of the time they don't. You learn not to ask questions, not to make friends too quickly, not to get attached, but you do it anyway, because loneliness is the worst punishment of all. The work never ends. You shovel, you haul, you dig, you carry. Your hands blister and bleed, your back aches, your knees swell. You learn to ignore the pain, to keep moving no matter what. Some people break, some people bend. You don't know which you are until it happens. There are moments, rare, precious, when you almost forget. The sun on your face, the taste of rain on your tongue, the sound of a song drifting from another barracks. You let yourself remember, just for a second, that you were once a person, once a child, once someone with a future. Then the whistle blows, the guard shouts, and you're back to being a number. You learn new skills, how to sleep standing up, how to eat slowly to make the food last, how to patch your uniform with thread pulled from the lining, how to beg, barter, steal, how to disappear into a crowd, how to reappear when it matters. You become an expert in survival, even if you never wanted to be. You watch new arrivals with a mix of pity and envy. They're cleaner, better fed, full of questions. They don't know the rules yet. Some of them never learn. You try to help, or you don't. It depends on the day, on how much you have to give, on whether you think they'll make it. There's always noise. Guards shouting, dogs barking, boots on gravel, the clang of the camp bell. At night, the sounds change. Whispers, sobs, the rustle of straw, the quiet breathing of those who are still alive. Sometimes silence is the loudest sound of all. Illness is everywhere. Coughs turn to fevers, fevers to chills, chills to death. The infirmary is just another word for waiting room. If you're lucky, you recover. If you're not, you disappear. Some people pretend to be sick, hoping for a day off work. Some people pretend to be healthy, hoping to avoid selection. You learn to lie, to fake, to bluff. It becomes second nature. You see things you wish you could forget, fights over scraps of food, betrayals for a place on a warmer bunk, friends turning on each other, strangers risking everything for a single act of kindness. You see the best and the worst of people, often in the same person, sometimes in the same day. The sky above the camp is the same sky as everywhere else. Blue in the morning, grey at night, sometimes streaked with stars. You wonder if anyone outside the fences ever looks up and thinks of you. You wonder if you'll ever see the sky from the other side again. Some nights, you dream of escape. Not a grand Hollywood escape with explosions and heroics, just a simple walk out the gates, back to your old life. You dream of hot soup, clean sheets, the smell of your mother's hair. You wake up, and the dream dissolves. You get up, and the day begins again. Time loses all meaning. Days stretch and snap like old elastic. You measure time by hunger, by pain, by the faces that disappear and the names you try not to forget. You stop counting the days. You stop hoping for rescue. You just keep moving, one foot in front of the other, because that's all you can do. You hear stories about uprisings, about escapes, about acts of resistance. Most of them are just stories. Some are true. A prisoner sabotages a piece of machinery. Someone steals a bit of food for a friend. Someone whispers a prayer in the darkness, defying the silence. Small rebellions, almost invisible, but they matter. They remind you that you're still alive, still capable of choice, still human. You watch the guards, the capos, the prisoners. You learn who to avoid, who to trust, who to fear. Some guards are cruel, some indifferent, some just tired. The capos walk a thin line, half prisoner, half guard, never quite trusted by either side. You see them beat their own. You see them sneak a crust of bread to a dying man. You see everything, and nothing surprises you anymore. When someone dies, there are no funerals, no prayers, no goodbyes. You drag the body outside, and someone else takes it away. Life goes on. The bread line moves forward. The work continues. Grief is a luxury, and you can't afford it. You learn to find beauty in the smallest things. A patch of blue sky, the pattern of frost on the barracks window, the feel of a breeze on your cheek. You learn to be grateful for the tiniest mercies, to hold on to whatever scraps of humanity you can find. You lose things, and you let them go. Your name, your past, your future. You become a number, a body, a face in the crowd. But inside, you hold on to something. Maybe a memory, maybe a hope, maybe just the stubborn will to live. And still, the days go on. The world inside the fences is a universe all its own. Time is measured in bread, in rumours, in the colour of the sky through dirty windows. Weeks and months pass, and the camp develops its own kind of warped order. There's a black market run by the clever or the desperate. There are whispered alliances and silent rivalries, favours traded in the dark. Some people invent games. How many stones in the courtyard? Who can name all the guards? Some hoard secrets. Others hoard crumbs. You become a collector of stories, of scars, of tiny acts of defiance. A woman braids a string from discarded threads and gifts it to her bunkmate, a talisman against despair. A boy sketches flowers in the dust with his finger and wipes them away before morning. Someone finds a lost button and presses it into your palm. An entire world of gratitude in that one small gesture. Sometimes it feels like the whole point of survival is to be there for another person in a single, impossible moment. There are days when the weather is almost beautiful, and it hurts. The sun slides through the wire and paints golden patterns on the gravel. A breeze stirs the hem of your uniform. For a minute, you are just a body in the light, neither prisoner nor free, just alive, even if only halfway. Then the guards shout, and the spell is broken. But for that instant, you remember how it felt to simply exist without fear. You witness the ingenuity of people pushed to the edge. A woman makes a comb from a scrap of wood and a broken fork, passing it down the row so everyone gets a turn. Men invent ways to fix shoes with string, stuff newspaper into shirts for warmth, hollow out hiding places in the floorboards. Someone carves a chess set from bits of coal and bread, and a secret league forms. Games played in whispers. The winner's prize a stolen potato or a corner of blanket. Illness takes its toll in winter. Fevers sweep through the barracks. Lice and fleas are constant companions. You learn to crush them between fingernails or ignore the itch. The sick huddle in a corner, wrapped in whatever rags they have left. The strong trade their labour for medicine, if there is any. You see the kindness in the way someone places a wet rag on a burning forehead, the way they spoon a bit of soup into a dying friend's mouth. Even here, tenderness survives. Religion and ritual sneak through cracks in the rules. There are secret Shabbat prayers whispered into sleeves, a Christmas song hummed in the dark, a circle of men sharing the story of Passover over a shared crust of bread. Some say nothing, having lost their faith, but others double down, defiance in every word of a forbidden prayer. For a few minutes, you remember there's a world beyond the wire, a world with calendars and holidays, hope and memory. There are times when the guards are lazier than usual, and you steal a few precious moments for yourself. A nap in the sun, a game of guess the cloud, a daydream about the taste of an apple. Sometimes you let yourself imagine a future, a bed with clean sheets, a table set for dinner, the weight of a loved one's hand. The trick is not to dwell too long. Too much hope is dangerous, like staring too long at the sun. It burns. News filters in through whispers. The front is moving, the Allies are advancing, the Germans are retreating. Someone claims to have seen a plane with a red star. Someone else says the war will be over by Christmas. You want to believe, but rumours in the camp are like smoke, shapeless, gone the moment you reach for them. Still, you tuck them away, another scrap of fuel for the fire inside. One day, you notice the guards look nervous. The routine breaks, orders change, and nobody bothers to explain why. There are fewer beatings, or maybe you've just stopped caring. You see panic in a capo's eyes, and something in your gut tells you the world outside the fences is shifting. Roll call is shorter, food is even scarcer. The days feel both slower and sharper, as if every second is a held breath. And then, chaos. No roll call, no orders. The gates are left open, or the locks are shot off. Some people run, others stand frozen, not believing it could be true. You wait, half expecting it's a trick, that the guards will come storming back and punish you for daring to hope. But the guards are gone. The watchtowers are empty. You're still hungry, still afraid. But now there's a silence that feels stranger than any shout. You step outside the barracks for the first time in forever without anyone stopping you. Some collapse where they stand, too weak to move. Some wander, dazed and barefoot, blinking in the sunlight as if it's something foreign. A Red Army soldier, caked in mud and disbelief, looks at you like he's seen a ghost. Maybe you are a ghost. Something caught between the world of the living and the dead. Freedom isn't a feeling. It's confusion, numbness, suspicion. You want to run, but you don't know where. You want to cry, but the tears are dried up somewhere deep inside. People wander the camp, looking for friends, for family, for answers. The living count the living. The dead are everywhere. Nobody knows what to do. The world outside the fences is nothing like the one you remember. Some try to walk home, only to find there's no home left, just ashes or strangers or neighbours who look away. Some find their towns intact but changed, everyone older and the memories faded to rumours. A few find relatives waiting, but most find only empty space. You wait in lines for food, for news, for some official to stamp a piece of paper and tell you what to do next. You find shelter where you can, displaced persons camps, charity hostels, sometimes a barn. Relief workers bring you blankets, bread, a new set of numbers. Nobody brings back your mother or your father or your brother. You carry your dead inside you. Every day, you look in the mirror and see someone you don't recognize. Your hair has grown back, but your face is hollow, your eyes too big. Some people talk about what happened, testifying in courts, writing books, building memorials. Others say nothing, carrying the silence like a stone in their chest. Some get angry, some laugh too loudly, some just keep moving. Always a suitcase packed and ready by the door. There's no right way to survive. Grief and memory bend everyone in their own direction. The years go by. You learn new routines, how to fill out forms, how to speak in different languages, how to say "I survived" without saying anything at all. You make a family, or you don't. You stay close to others from the camp, or you avoid them because their presence is a mirror you can't bear. You save scraps, an old photograph, a spoon, a song. Every anniversary, every war story, every small cruelty brings it all back. Some nights you light a candle for the ones who didn't make it. Some nights you turn off the light and hope for a dreamless sleep. The camp never really leaves you. It waits behind your eyes, a shadow that follows you everywhere. The world expects you to move on, so you do. But part of you is always there, in that long grey barracks, counting days, measuring hope in crumbs and kindness. Sometimes you find laughter again, awkward at first, then easier, then real. You find beauty in the smallest things. You hold on to life with the stubbornness that only comes from having almost lost it. You learn to live in two worlds at once, the world of now and the world of then, always brushing up against each other, sometimes colliding. History books call it liberation, but freedom isn't a single moment. It's a process, a slow, stumbling journey. Some days it feels possible, even easy. Other days, it's just another word for survival. You walk through the rest of your days carrying everything you saw and lost and loved, finding yourself among other wanderers, all of you with invisible suitcases packed with memories too heavy to put down. And that's why we remember. Not for the brutality, the numbers, the cruelty, the pain, but for the small acts of survival, resistance, and dignity. For the stories that deserve to be told, even as bedtime stories. Because memory is resistance too. If you're still here, still awake, or maybe drifting at the edge of sleep, thank you. Thanks for sitting with the weight of this story, for listening all the way through, for letting history in, even if it isn't easy. Like I always say, let me know where you're tuning in from, or just tell me what's keeping you up tonight. Because sometimes the darkest stories are the ones that help us remember what matters most. Now close your eyes, if you can, and let yourself drift into a gentler place. You've earned it. Good night. If you're still here, if you're still awake, still staring at the ceiling, or just stubbornly refusing to let the night win, then congratulations. You're in the real After Hours Club now. Maybe my last story wasn't boring enough, or maybe you're just the kind of person who always asks for one more. Either way, let's dim the lights a bit more, pull that blanket a little higher, and drift together into one of history's other dark corners. And before we really dig in, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you want more of these sleepless journeys through the weirdest and worst times in history. Tell me in the comments, are you actually still awake? Where are you listening from? And what hour is it? I promise, I read every single one. Okay, time for a story that's less fairy tale and more field report from the edge of reason. Tonight, you're not a king, a peasant, or a plague rat. Tonight, you're a captured soldier in World War II, waking up inside a prisoner of war camp, one of those places where the rules matter, but only because the wrong ones can get you killed. Welcome to a world of barbed wire, boredom, bureaucracy, and a kind of slow burn misery that somehow manages to be both monotonous and terrifying at the same time. Spoiler, the food is bad, the beds are worse, and escape isn't half as glamorous as the movies make it look. Congratulations, you've just woken up, not at home, not even in the trenches, but in a place where the war is just a rumour on the other side of the wire. Your first sensation is cold. The second is ache. Every muscle, every joint, as if you've been run over by a supply truck in your sleep. You try to stretch, but the ceiling, really the bottom of the bunk above you, is 6 inches from your nose and splintered. You cough and taste dust, old sweat, and something that's probably mildew. You're in a barracks, one of a dozen, maybe more, each a long, sagging wooden shed packed wall to wall with rows of triple bunks. Every plank groans under the weight of men stacked like firewood, most of them snoring, a few muttering in their dreams, one or two quietly crying when they think no one's listening. The smell. Imagine old boots, wet wool, cigarettes, unwashed skin, and fear, all stewing for months without a single honest breeze. The guy to your left is British and grinds his teeth so loud you dream of chalkboards. The guy on your right is French, and he's learned to curse in 3 languages since capture. You're just trying to make it to morning without losing your socks or your mind. There's no gentle alarm, no bird song, not even a bugle, just the slamming open of the barracks door and a voice bellowing in German, or Russian, or Japanese. POW misery is multilingual. You fumble for your boots and scramble down, trying not to land on someone's face. Your feet hit the floorboards, freezing, always a little wet, sometimes suspiciously sticky. Cue for the latrine. It's outside, across the muddy yard, past the barbed wire and under the watchful gaze of a tower guard who looks like he hasn't blinked in 3 days. The latrine is a long wooden shed with holes in a plank, no doors, and a draft that can freeze your soul in January. Privacy. You're kidding, right? Men sit shoulder to shoulder, trading groans and grim jokes. No toilet paper, just yesterday's newspaper, or, more often, nothing at all. You learn to be quick, to breathe through your mouth, and to ignore everything but necessity. Back inside, the barracks is chaos. Men shuffling, boots laced with one hand, scarfing down crumbs saved from last night's ration. Some wash their faces in cold water from a communal bucket. Others just swipe at the dirt and call it good. If you want a towel, that's your shirt. If you want a mirror, it's a shard of polished tin nailed to the wall, cracked and grimy. By now, the barracks reeks of old sweat, new fear, and the hopeful tang of wood smoke from the stove at the far end. A stove that only works when someone bribes the right guy with a cigarette to fetch wood. You pull on your jacket, already feeling yesterday's fatigue in your bones. You're awake, but nobody would call it refreshed. Outside, the sky is grey, grey at dawn, grey at noon, grey at dusk. The yard is a sea of mud or dust, depending on the season, but always punctuated by boots and the sharp scent of cold metal. Everyone lines up for roll call. Guards count, then count again, then argue about the number. If someone's missing, a man sick, a man gone, a man dead, the counting starts over. Sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes half the morning. The only thing longer than the line is the silence, broken only by shivers, coughs, or the distant muffled sound of a dog barking its own misery. Your breath clouds the air, your feet go numb. Some men try to joke. At least we're not late for work. But nobody laughs for real. Once, a new arrival fainted during roll call. The guards dragged him off. He came back days later, quiet and thin as a shadow. After that, everyone tried harder to stay upright. Eventually, the numbers line up, the guards get bored, and you're allowed to shuffle back inside. Breakfast, such as it is doled out in the mess. Don't picture anything grand. It's a half cup of black liquid, which some optimists call coffee, and a heel of bread that's mostly sawdust and last week's crumbs. Maybe a thin slice of ersatz cheese, maybe not. The line to the food window moves with the enthusiasm of men headed for dental surgery. Trays clatter, elbows nudge, and there's always a risk some desperate soul will try to swap his chunk of bread for yours if you look away for even a second. You eat fast, partly because hunger is a daily companion, partly because the guards don't allow much dawdling. The mess hall is a chaos of tin mugs, slopped soup, and men hunched over their bowls, trying to eat without making eye contact. Everyone has their own method. Some savour each crumb, others wolf it down and spend the next hour dreaming about real food. The Frenchman 2 bunks over once described a croissant in such detail half the room nearly cried. That was weeks ago, but you still remember the look in his eyes, the longing, the ghost of butter and flour, the reminder that you're all still human, even here. Some mornings you swap stories as you eat, about the food back home, the women, the music, anything to break the monotony. Sometimes, though, it's just silence. The British call this a stiff upper lip. The Russians just call it survival. You learn fast. Don't talk too loud. Don't talk too long. And never complain where a guard might hear. After breakfast, it's time for work. Not work like you remember, not a job, not a calling, not even a means to an end. Work in camp is punishment disguised as purpose. Every morning, guards post the day's work details, chalked up on a battered board, or shouted by a capo with a voice like gravel. You line up, shuffling and shivering, and wait to be picked. Sometimes it's shoveling snow from paths that will be buried again by noon. Sometimes it's stacking firewood for a stove that barely heats the commandant's office, let alone the barracks. Other days you haul bricks, clean latrines, or dig trenches for reasons that are never explained. There are rumours, always rumours, that the hardest jobs go to the escape risks, that the softest jobs are reserved for the favourites, that there's a secret list and you're not on it. The luckiest get kitchen duty. It's not glamorous, but the chance to scrape a pot clean or snag an extra crust of bread makes you a hero for a day. The worst is the grave detail, though no one ever talks about it. Everyone just glances away when the subject comes up. Most of the time it's endless, pointless labour, the kind designed to exhaust rather than accomplish. The guards are always watching. Some are bored, lazy, content to let the hours drag. Others are eager for any excuse to make an example, too slow with your shovel, too quick with a joke, too many trips to the water pump. You learn to keep your head down and your hands busy. Every work detail comes with its own rituals. The men who share your shovel might be from 4 countries, speaking 5 languages, but you all understand hunger, cold, and the language of shared suffering. You make up games. Counting bricks, reciting poetry under your breath, betting who can sneak a pebble into the officer's boot. Small victories are what keep you sane. Back from work, you learn the camp has its own shadow market. Money is worthless, but cigarettes, they're gold. 1 cigarette buys you a second helping of soup, a pair of dry socks, even news from another barracks. Chocolate, if it appears, is a miracle. Soap, razor blades, an extra button, everything has value. Barter becomes an art form. Some men gamble, dice made from bread crusts, cards scribbled on torn paper. Some trade their rations for letters from home. There's always a hustler, a trader, a fixer who seems to have what you need, if you can pay. Red Cross parcels, when they come, are a lifeline and a source of drama. Some guards skim the best bits for themselves. The rest gets divided, sometimes fair, sometimes not. You learn to hide anything precious. Chocolate in a sock, sugar in a hollowed-out book, a photo inside your boot. Getting caught means losing it all, but sometimes the risk is worth it. A single square of chocolate savoured in the dark can taste like freedom. Stories of home become their own currency. The Canadian next to you tells tales of hunting in the snow. The Australian boasts of endless blue sky and beaches. The American sings snatches of jazz. The Brit reads a page of Dickens, and suddenly the barracks feels, just for a moment, like somewhere else. You hoard these stories the way you hoard scraps of bread. Most days are the same. You wake, you wait, you work, you eat, you try to sleep. But in the monotony, there are moments that stand out. One morning, you wake to find your boots missing. The Russian below you borrowed them for latrine duty and left a note promising to bring them back. He doesn't. You spend the day in wet socks, plotting revenge that never comes. By nightfall, you're grateful just to have something on your feet at all. On a rare sunny afternoon, someone starts a game of football in the yard. The ball is rags tied with string. For 15 minutes, men from 5 nations forget the wire, the guards, the hunger. You laugh so hard you forget why you stopped laughing in the first place. The guards watch, bemused or indifferent. At Christmas, a chaplain whispers a midnight mass in 3 languages. Someone hums, "Silent Night." The air is so cold your breath hangs like a cloud, but for 1 hour, the world outside the barracks fades away. You make a friend, a Polish lieutenant with a crooked grin and 1,000 bad jokes. He shares half his bread and teaches you how to count cards. Later, you hear he's been transferred and you never see him again. That's how it goes. People come, people go. You remember them in the silence between roll calls. Winter in camp is a kind of punishment all its own. The barracks leak wind like a sieve. You sleep in every stitch of clothing you own, wrapped in your own arms for warmth. Your breath freezes on the inside of the window. The water bucket turns to ice. Men huddle together, sharing body heat and stories. You dread the dawn because it means leaving your only warm place for another endless roll call. Your fingers split and bleed. Your boots are stiff with cold. Your blanket never enough. Frostbite is common. Sometimes you don't feel your toes for days. The only upside? Lice and fleas slow down in the cold. Silver lining if you're desperate. Spring is a relief, but with it comes mud. The yard is a churned-up bog. Your socks never dry. Work details get longer. Moving rocks, clearing drainage ditches, anything to keep you occupied. The air smells faintly of grass, and once you spot a bird nesting under the eaves. For a second, you remember there's a world outside the wire. Summer brings its own miseries. The sun bakes the barracks, turning the air inside into soup. Flies breed in every puddle, and you sweat through your uniform before breakfast. Water is warm, then scarce. Tempers flare. The best nights are when you can sleep with your face pressed against the screen, breathing in the faintest hint of a breeze. Autumn comes with shorter days, longer shadows. The wind picks up, the rations seem to shrink. You start dreading winter even before the first frost. Some men keep a calendar, marking off days, weeks, months. Most stop counting after a while. Time in camp stretches and shrinks, measured only in the changing light and the endless repetition of routine. Night is its own ordeal. The barracks never really sleep. Some men snore, Others talk in their dreams. A few cry, softly, hoping no one hears. Someone always has a cough that won't quit. You lie awake, counting the breaths, the creaks, the moments when it seems everyone but you has found oblivion. Your bunk creaks with every movement. The man above you rolls over, the man below shifts, and the boards complain in unison. You're always cold, always sore, always wishing for 5 more inches of space. You miss the feel of a real bed, sheets, pillows, a room where you can close the door. Here, there are no secrets, no solitude, no privacy. Even your dreams are communal. Sometimes you remember home in fragments, a warm kitchen, the sound of a radio, the weight of a cat on your lap. You wonder if you'll ever see those things again. You wonder if you'll even remember how to enjoy them if you do. Mostly, you just try to sleep. In camp, you make friends out of necessity and rivals out of boredom. The British stick together, the Russians form a clique. The Americans and Canadians swap stories about baseball and bad coffee, but when it matters, everyone's in the same boat. You learn who can be trusted with your last bit of bread, who will rat you out for a cigarette, who always seems to have an extra pair of socks. There's a silent code: share when you can, don't ask for too much, remember the favours. Sometimes friendships form quickly. A joke, a game of cards, a story shared in the dark. Sometimes they fade just as fast. The man who promised to teach you chess disappears overnight, and no one says why. The guy who claimed he could speak 6 languages never speaks again after his letter from home brings bad news. There are always ghosts, men who go quiet, who give up, who simply fade into the background. You try to remember their names, to honour them in the smallest ways. A toast at dinner, a story told in their memory. You never say goodbye, it's bad luck. The best currency in camp is news, real, imagined, or just plain wishful thinking. Someone always knows someone who heard from a guard who said the war would be over by Christmas. Someone swears the Allies are just a day away. Someone else claims to have seen a plane with American markings. Every rumour is dissected, discussed, then quietly set aside. You learn not to hope too much. Hope is dangerous. Still, hope creeps in. A Red Cross parcel arrives with a letter from home. Someone gets news of a baby born, a wife waiting, a family farm still standing. These scraps of life keep you going. Despair, when it comes, is slow and silent. Men who once planned escapes now just go through the motions. The jokes get darker, the laughter more brittle. You count the days until something changes, then stop counting because nothing does. Religion is forbidden, ignored, or just quietly tolerated, depending on the guards. Some men pray every night, some never pray at all. There are secret masses, whispered hymns, a rabbi who leads prayers in the corner after lights out. Christmas, Passover, Easter, Ramadan, all marked in small, defiant ways. A crust of bread saved for communion, a prayer said over soup, a song hummed so softly only the faithful hear. There's camp theatre. A Polish major recites Shakespeare in the mess hall. A Russian plays accordion. A Frenchman juggles potatoes to applause. You have concerts, poetry readings, even a camp university with lectures on history, mathematics, philosophy. The guards pretend not to notice as long as it keeps you quiet. Every culture brings its own rituals, and you pick up pieces of all of them. A Russian lullaby, an English curse, an American joke. The barracks is a melting pot of misery and memory, and sometimes, in the right light, it almost feels like a community. Time in the camp is less a river than a swamp. You're not sure you're moving at all, and every day feels like you're slogging through the same mud with the same faces. You stop counting mornings and start measuring your life in smaller things. A thicker slice of bread, a dry pair of socks, the rare miracle of a letter from home. Some men scratch tallies on the underside of their bunk. You watch those lines grow until the wood is more scar than tree. The seasons change, or at least you think they do. Winter drags on forever, each night a battle between your will and the cold seeping through the walls. You sleep curled tight, boots still on, breath making tiny clouds in the darkness. On the worst nights, the wind wails through the cracks and every bone aches, but you listen to the low mumble of men around you. Old jokes, lost songs, snatches of prayer. The barracks is a ship adrift in a sea of frozen mud, and all you can do is hold your place and try to ride out the storm. When the thaw comes, it's not joy, just a shift in misery. The yard turns to a sucking bog, swallowing every step, and the smell of old latrines leaks into every meal. Socks never dry, boots rot out from underneath you. But a bird sings once, just outside the wire, and the whole camp goes silent. Everyone listening, just for a heartbeat, for proof the world is still turning. You cling to routines, roll call, work detail, watery soup, cards in the dark, trading stories or cigarettes, prayers whispered into sleeves. These rituals are the fence inside your head, keeping you upright when the rest of you wants to dissolve. On lucky nights, laughter bubbles up around a battered deck of cards. You remember a joke your brother told you years ago. You tell it badly. Someone adds a new punchline, and you all laugh until a guard shouts. For a second, you're just a person in a room, not a prisoner, not a number. Some days pass in a fog. There are moments when you forget what came before. Your hometown, your mother's kitchen, the way your dog's feet thumped on the floor when he wanted out. You try to summon those memories, to hold on to them like a coin in your pocket, but they blur at the edges, growing thinner with every passing week. At night, you dream in grey, sometimes of the front, sometimes of meals you'll never eat again, sometimes of nothing at all. You wake up tired, always tired. A man in your barracks loses hope just for an afternoon, and you watch as he disappears into himself. Eyes empty, words slurred, body slumping against the bunk. You force him to eat a few bites of bread. Someone else tells a story about a girl in Paris, the best street musician you ever heard. For a moment, you're somewhere else, music in the air, sunlight on your face. Sometimes that's all it takes to get someone through the day. There's no privacy in camp, not ever. You sleep pressed against strangers, feet tangled with shins, shoulders braced so you don't roll onto the cold floor. You learn to live with the smells, sweat, damp wool, unwashed hair, the sharp bite of cheap tobacco. You stop noticing, you stop caring. You'd give anything for a warm bath, clean sheets, a door you could close. Rumours swirl around camp like smoke, impossible to grab, impossible to avoid. One week, the Americans are just over the next hill. The next, the guards say Berlin has fallen, or the war is lost, or nothing at all. News arrives in scraps. Scribbled notes, a dropped word from a new arrival, a song hummed under a guard's breath. You learn not to trust any of it, but you can't help hoping all the same. Sometimes hope is a fever. Sometimes it's the only thing that keeps you upright. Sometimes there's a fight, over food, over cards, over nothing. Tempers fray as rations shrink, as nights drag on, as nerves shred. The guards break it up, or they don't. Sometimes you think they enjoy watching you snap, but just as quickly as anger flares, it fades. You apologize in the dark, with a nudge of your elbow, or the quiet offering of a scrap of bread. In camp, you learn how to forgive, if only because you have to see these faces every day. Not every day is a loss. One afternoon, a mail call. You line up, heart pounding, listening for your name. When it finally comes, you're shaking, tearing open the envelope with fingers numb from cold and hope. The letter is short, just a few lines about home, your father fixing the roof, your sister learning to ride a bike, your mother telling you to stay strong. You read it 5 times, then tuck it into your jacket. That night, you read it again by the stove's dying glow, mouthing every word like a prayer. On another day, the camp orchestra plays, a battered accordion, a violin missing a string, someone drumming on a mess tin. The guards let it happen, maybe because even they want to remember something softer for a while. For 15 minutes, music fills the air, and you see eyes close around the room, men swaying, lips moving as they follow a tune only they remember. There are holidays too, Christmas, Passover, Easter, a birthday marked by a rationed crumb of chocolate. Someone lights a candle made from animal fat and a twisted thread, shields it with their hands as you all bow your heads. A prayer is muttered in 3 languages. For a heartbeat, you're more than a prisoner. You're part of something still living, still defiant, still human. And then, as always, the routine returns. Roll call, work, hunger, exhaustion, sleep, if you're lucky. Some nights, you lie awake, listening to the wind howl through the barracks, wondering if anyone will ever know your name, if the world will keep turning without you. But every morning you wake up, you stand, you shuffle to the latrine, you count the days, you search for something, anything to hold on to. That, more than anything, is survival. And so the days grind on, long after you've run out of ways to count them. Summer's heat bakes the camp in its own sweat, turning the air inside the barracks syrup thick. At night, you lie with your shirt pulled up, praying for a breeze, anything to push away the staleness. Someone 2 bunks over dreams out loud, muttering in Polish or French, words blurred with longing and fever. You can't sleep, but it doesn't matter. Tomorrow will arrive, slow and heavy, no matter how tired you are. You try to carve out little spaces of privacy where you can. Sometimes that means sitting on the latrine a minute longer, just for the illusion of solitude. Sometimes it means staring out the window at the sky, grey, then blue, then orange, then gone, until you almost forget the fence is there. A favourite ritual, tracing the outline of a tree on the horizon with your finger, remembering the smell of real forests, the crunch of pine needles under your boots, the sound of wind moving through branches. A few minutes like that, and you can almost fool yourself into believing you'll see home again. Friendships form out of nothing and dissolve just as quickly. The Frenchman who used to share jokes over breakfast drifts away, his face drawn and grey, barely speaking. You watch him fade, powerless to stop it. Another man steps up, an English pilot with a limp and a stubborn optimism. He's always talking about the future, about what he'll do when this is over. Eat steak and kidney pie, take a long bath, kiss his wife under the streetlights. Some nights you let yourself believe him. Other nights you just nod, half listening, saving your hope for later. There are moments of defiance, tiny rebellions that barely register unless you're looking for them. Someone steals an extra ladle of soup and shares it around the barracks, 1 spoon at a time. Someone else tells a guard a joke just to see if he'll laugh. He doesn't, but for a second, everyone else does. You sew a patch onto your sleeve in bright thread, the only colour in a world of grey and brown. A story goes around that someone hid a radio in the laundry room, tuning in scraps of forbidden music late at night. You never see it, but the possibility is enough. Hope is dangerous, but it refuses to die. Every few weeks, new prisoners arrive, skinny and scared, carrying news from the outside. They landed, they say, or the Russians are coming. You try not to believe it, but you find yourself looking for signs. An airplane overhead, the sound of distant gunfire, a guard who seems nervous. Each rumour is a lifeline, and also a curse. When hope fades, the fall is harder, but you keep reaching anyway. Sometimes despair wins. A man in your barracks gets sick and just gives up. He won't eat, won't get out of bed, won't speak. The doctor, another prisoner, always tired, always out of medicine, does what he can, but there's not much to offer. You sit with the sick man for a while, sharing your warmth, humming an old lullaby you half remember. Sometimes he looks at you, eyes bright with something you can't name. Sometimes he just stares through you, already gone. When he dies, you and a few others dig a shallow grave by the fence, marking it with a stone. That night, nobody says a word at dinner. Rations shrink with the seasons. Sometimes there's meat in the soup, sometimes you wish there wasn't. You become an expert in scraping bowls clean, in chewing bread slow enough to trick your stomach into feeling full. The best days are when a Red Cross parcel arrives. Biscuits, jam, maybe a tin of sardines, the rarest luxury of all. Chocolate. You break it into tiny pieces, sharing with those who've gone the longest without. The taste is so bright it nearly hurts. For a few minutes you're almost happy. The camp invents its own culture. Men put on plays in the mess, using bed sheets for costumes, flour for face powder, bits of coal for eyeliner. Someone writes a poem for the holiday. Funny, sad, a little bit of both. When the guards allow, there's music. A battered harmonica, a violin with only 2 strings, a chorus of voices humming old songs. The sound echoes in your chest, filling a space you thought was empty. Every week, someone celebrates a birthday. Nobody's sure of the date, but you make it up anyway. A slice of potato, a bit of jam, a candle made from fat and string. Everyone gathers around, singing quietly, pretending not to see the tears. You realize how much these little rituals mean. The stubborn insistence on normal life, the refusal to be only prisoners. You trade whatever you have. Cigarettes for socks, socks for buttons, buttons for stories from home. There's a man in the next barracks who can fix anything, and he'll mend your coat in exchange for a memory of summer. One night you pay with a story of fishing on a river, the water so cold your hands turned blue, the sky bright with birds. He listens, nodding, sewing in silence. When he's finished, he pats your shoulder. "Keep that memory close," he says. "It'll keep you warmer than this coat." The weather rules everything. A week of rain and the camp becomes a swamp, mud swallowing your boots, latrines overflowing, everyone cranky and cold. Then a hard freeze. Your breath clouds every word. The barracks echo with coughs. Someone knits a scarf from old rags, passing it down the line each night so everyone gets a turn at a little extra warmth. In the spring, the sun comes back, shy at first, then blazing. Men strip to their undershirts and lie on the grass, eyes closed, soaking up what little comfort there is. There are fights, over cards, over bread, over nothing. Sometimes you join in, swinging wild, just to feel your blood moving. Most of the time, though, you walk away. There's a peace in silence, in letting anger slide off your back like rain. You save your strength for the things that matter, holding a friend's hand when he's sick, offering your last cigarette to someone whose hope is fading. At night, you dream of home. Not the real one, the perfect one, built from scraps of memory and longing. The kitchen is always warm, the table always full, the air always clean. You see your mother, younger than you remember, your father laughing, your brother running in from the yard, shoes muddy, hair wild. You try to hold on to these dreams, but they slip away every morning when the barracks door slams open and the world returns. Rumours keep you alive. "The war will end by Christmas," someone whispers. "They're retreating," another says. "The Allies are coming." You nod, repeat the words to yourself, try to believe. You mark time by the stories. The week Berlin was supposed to fall, the day someone claimed to have heard artillery in the distance, the hour a guard let slip. Soon you'll all go home. Nothing happens, but hope flickers on anyway. And then, slowly, things begin to change. The guards look nervous, talking in hushed voices, glancing over their shoulders. Roll calls get shorter, rules slacken. One day, the commandant doesn't appear. Another day, the gates are left open an extra hour. Food deliveries stop and the guards start taking more than their share. Rumours run wild, liberation is coming, or maybe the camp will be abandoned, or maybe something worse. You live in a state of constant, trembling uncertainty. Every sound makes you jump. Every day feels like a test you haven't studied for. Some men are sure freedom is just hours away. Others are certain it's a trap. You pack your few belongings, half a loaf of bread, a letter from home, a broken spoon, the coat you traded a memory for, and wait. Then, one morning, the guards are gone. Vanished, as if they never existed. No orders, no roll call, only silence and the uneasy shuffling of feet. The yard fills with men, blinking in the pale sun, not sure if they're allowed to hope yet. You walk to the fence, lay your hand on the cold wire, feel the world beyond trembling under your fingers. A day passes, maybe two. Hunger gnaws, nerves fray, nobody knows what to do. Some men wander out the gate, vanishing into the woods, trying to find their way home. Others stay, waiting for something, rescue, a sign, anything at all. You stick with your friends, the men who have become your family, and watch the road. When the first trucks arrive, soldiers in unfamiliar uniforms, speaking in languages you half remember, you're too tired to celebrate. Relief comes slow, seeping in around the edges, never quite reaching the center of you. The world outside is changed. You are changed. The new soldiers offer food, blankets, a place to rest, but you move like a ghost, wary of kindness, unsure if it's real. Liberation isn't the end. It's just another beginning, harder in some ways than captivity. You try to eat, but your stomach rebels. You sleep, but dream of guards and gates and hunger. The world is loud, colours too bright, voices too cheerful. You smile when spoken to, but your laughter sounds wrong. You want to go home, but you're not sure where that is anymore. The days blur, filled with lines. Lines for food, lines for medicine, lines for transport home. You share a barracks with strangers now, survivors from other camps, each with their own scars and stories. Some talk too much, some never speak at all. You exchange names, hometowns, hopes for the future, all of it feeling thin and brittle. Eventually, you board a train, crowded, noisy, but headed away from the camp. The countryside rolls by in green waves, towns appear and vanish, people wave from crossings. You watch through the window, heart pounding, waiting to recognize something, anything that means you're home. When the train finally stops in a place you know, you step off onto the platform, feet unsteady, hands trembling. Someone meets you, a neighbour, an old friend, a distant cousin. You hug awkwardly, not sure where to put your hands, not sure how to be yourself. The house is smaller than you remember, the kitchen colder, the streets changed. You sleep in your own bed for the first time in years, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. It's almost too quiet. Time moves differently now. Some days, the camp feels far away, like a nightmare that fades with the sun. Other days, it's as close as your own breath, the ache in your bones, the rumble in your stomach, the sound of boots in the hallway. You find yourself counting things, chairs, windows, seconds between heartbeats, trying to make sense of a world that isn't measured by fences anymore. You learn to laugh again, slowly. The first time feels strange, like trying on someone else's coat. The second time, you mean it. You find joy in small things, a cup of hot tea, the smell of rain, the sound of a dog barking in the yard. You write letters, telling people you're alive, that you're home, that you remember them. You forget how to write about the camp. It sits behind your words like a shadow. Sometimes you wake in the night, heart racing, sure you're back in the barracks. You lie still, listening, waiting for the guards, the bell, the call to work. When none comes, you close your eyes and breathe, letting the fear drift away. Each morning, you get up, wash your face, drink your tea, step outside. The sun feels warmer now, or maybe it's just that you're free to notice it. You carry the camp with you, always, in your habits, your fears, your moments of kindness and anger, in the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you reach for the light switch before stepping into a dark room. But you carry something else too, the memory of friends lost and found, the taste of freedom, the stubborn hope that refused to die. And so, if you're still awake, if you've made it all the way through this long grey night of history, know this: you survived, you're here, you've walked through fire and come out the other side, not unchanged, but unbroken. As you close your eyes and let sleep finally take you, may your dreams be gentle, your nights quiet, and your mornings full of light. Good night, and thank you for listening.